have found us. More podcast, where we want you to know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny and make an eternal difference. Now,
you're right. It is this time again during the week. Welcome to this week's podcast. We have an amazing offer for you today. The cost of a free Taco Bell napkin. You can find more of what you're looking for to make your week so much better. You know, there's no more need to run to your nearest fast food establishment and grab handfuls of free napkins, wasting valuable time. You just need to sit back and listen to as we give more.
Because the more is not sloppy.
The more
we will not. I mean, you might drool because you're getting so excited about the information.
That's right.
But
I know there are people that do that.
Yeah.
You know, when they hear the podcast, I've got to give a shout out again to Joe. You know, he's one of our first time listeners that just loves his podcast.
yeah,
He tells me every week that he loves it, and his wife keeps telling me every week, quit mentioning his name. So I've got to.
You have to.
Yeah, now that she's raised the bar that I have to mention him all the time. Well, to help me today in studio, the man whose wife has more secrets about her famous cookies than Colonel Sanders,
yeah.
Pastor Gary.
All right.
Welcome.
And good job getting Lisa Kay in there.
Yeah,
That's
you
good.
know, I try.
She's going to be happy with that.
You know, her cookies are amazing. I don't know what she puts in them. I don't want to know.
Love. It's just a lot of love in there.
Yeah, it's so good. And then also, not trying to brag, is the only 1948 Olympic champion still alive who won the Best Bystander silver medal, Pastor Alex Norton.
There you go.
Yeah, still kicking. 1948.
Who got gold that year?
Probably the world's greatest sleeper. I'm pretty sure that was one of them on there. But yeah, I got the Best Bystander. I was the one that, you know, every picture during that Olympics, you see me standing by there somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you can look it up on the internet, Google my name, and you might find me somewhere. So how's your week? Pretty good.
It's been going wonderful. And as I mentioned on Sunday morning, when you're preaching about spiritual warfare, you're getting a chance to be involved. I am in the trenches.
That's right. Yeah.
It is crazy, but God is great.
What more could happen, right? I mean, really.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it too much.
It's all good.
Yeah, as soon as you throw that out there, it's kind of like the devil's like, okay, let's see what's going on, you know?
Let's see if you can back up what you're saying.
Yeah, my beautiful bride, she's on a vacation tour of her nieces and nephews.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's right now in, I think, Minnesota, last I heard, Minnesota.
Great.
And she told me that they have better weather there than we do right now. And I'm thinking to myself, Minnesota. You're talking about Minnesota, which is probably one of the most coldest places in the United States. International Falls, by far, in Minnesota, gets colder than any other place.
Right, it holds a lot of records. I know that.
Yeah, and they never thaw out till like June. And apparently, they're having like 65, 70-degree weather. Right
Really?
now. Yeah, it's not right.
Well, we definitely got spoiled a couple weeks ago when we had that 86-degree kind of stuff going on for 3 or 4 days. That was pretty sweet.
What was going on with that?
It was like, oh, I love global warming. It's good.
That's not fair. Scott, our guitar player, you know, I noticed he never gives up.
Yeah, he wears shorts all year round.
Yeah, he's not giving up anything, and he will be here on Sunday if he plays with shorts on.
Yep.
And that's good. I'm glad he does. He's got the legs for it.
Yeah, there you go.
Some of us don't.
Right.
You know, if I do that, you might think, oh, is Shekinah Glory's in the house right now, or what's going on? You know.
Look, Pastor Alex has 2 knees
Yeah, right. Yeah,
per leg.
And they're really white. Yeah. So wintertime's good for me because I can hide all that stuff. But in the summer, it's a risk.
Yeah.
It is always a risk to come out and show people how white I truly am. Well, thinking about this last week's sermon series as we start our new 7-week series on spiritual warfare, I found that there are telltale signs that you might be in the thick of it right now in spiritual warfare.
Really?
Yeah.
List those off because I can probably check a few of them.
There might be some on here that you might. I mean, some of these are, general comprehension of it. Some of it may be, news to you, but they exist. Of course, pretty much everything that I say at this point in the podcast is up for speculation.
Okay.
But I still give it to you because that's what we're here for. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to walk away saying, I did not learn anything. You were going to learn something right now.
Yes, absolutely.
So you might be in the thick of it in spiritual warfare right now in your life when your husband gets the mysterious man cold and can't even get out of bed on a Saturday to go thrift store shopping.
Okay.
That's a possibility.
It is.
The women that are listening to us, they know what I'm talking about.
All right.
The mysterious man cold that happens, all of a sudden, you can't move arms and legs. And
Debilitating.
It is debilitating.
Yep.
I keep telling my wife all the time that when I get a cold, it is far worse than what she could ever get.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand that. I'm like, you don't get it.
Yep.
Even though you've brought children into the world.
Right.
And all those things that you've done.
Somehow that act
Right.
emboldens them with strength, that's out of this world,
Yeah.
right? They can they can handle anything in perspective.
That's right. Yeah. And I can't, there are times when I get the man cold, I can't even feed myself or pick up a pillow to move it.
Okay.
I need help,
All right.
Yeah, and it's bad. And that may be part of spiritual
I do have a relative who gets sick occasionally, and they just go in their room, shut the door.
Yeah.
And they don't come out until they're healed up.
Yeah.
And they just don't come out. And you'll go over to pray for them. They're like, no, just pray from the door. Don't even come in here.
Just stay out there.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that you can cure this thing.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times it's just a lot of sleep.
Right.
Maybe watching a football game.
Okay.
Football is a good healer.
It is.
It's medicinal for sometimes.
Okay.
Try telling that to my wife. It doesn't work. My wife would probably lay hands on me without the benefit of prayer.
There you go.
If I try to pull the mysterious man cold. All right. The second one is that when you are woken at 3 a.m. by an overpowering temptation to eat every Lisa K cookie that you can find.
That one's on my list for sure.
That might be.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just sound asleep.
And then she puts them in those special cellophane wraps.
Yeah.
That it's hard to sneak it. You can hear that unwrap from
Right.
the full distance of the house.
That's right. And she does it on purpose.
She
it's
does.
like an alarm.
It is.
So she
It's
knows.
like, crickle, crickle, crickle. What are you doing?
I know. I try that sometimes when I get up because I'm one of those guys that gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll go to the fridge and my wife will all of a sudden be coming out of the darkness and she's like, "What are you doing?" Just looking around, need the fridge for light so I can get some water.
I'm laughing right now because when I was a kid, my brother and I, we had a game.
Yeah.
This shows you how bored we were. We had a game where we had this, we had a porcelain cookie jar.
Yeah.
And then one person would sit in the living room facing away from the kitchen.
Okay.
And the other person would have to come in, remove the lid, try to get as many cookies out and put the lid back on without being detected. And the person sitting on the couch was listening with just like super hyper radar to try to pick up the sonar of the sound. And that was a game we played. We were mastering our ability to steal cookies.
Well, one time I read an article about how women have certain pitches that they pick up on super quick.
Okay.
Like, I think it's because they, always listen for the baby or whatever.
Right. Okay.
So if you talk in a high pitched tone, they'll definitely pick up on that.
Okay.
But if you lower your register, not even to a whisper, just lower your register deeper.
Okay.
A lot of times it doesn't wake them up. I have tried that a few times, and I think it might work. I think I might have proven it to be right.
Okay.
But it does not work, with chip bags, and it does not work when you're opening a pop in the middle.
Cookie wrappers.
Cookie wrappers does not work. It seems to be in that pitch range where they pick up right away. So, you're on your own. But, if you're feeling an overwhelming temptation to get up at 3 a.m, there's a good chance it might be a spiritual battle. You might need to talk to somebody at Weight Watchers or something. I'm not sure. Okay. So the third one that's something that we should keep on the radar is when you sleep at night and you hear a frightening sound that is then followed by the smell of rotten eggs, causing tears to well up in your eyes for the next 5 minutes, that might be something like that.
So I think you're right. I mean, some spiritual forces have a sulfur kind of scent that comes along with them.
Yeah.
So you're saying that when I smell that, that's a spiritual attack.
It could be.
It could be.
It very well could be.
Okay.
It might be. It just might be. I'm just saying.
I have a couple of friends that I can smell it. I can smell that when I'm around them a lot.
Is that possibly something going on?
That's not just 3 a.m. That's 3 p.m. that happens.
It's like an indicator that something is happening right now.
Something is amiss. Something's a foul.
That's right. And there have been times where I've been just walking in the store. And all of a sudden I just walk right into it.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, devil, what's going on here? Are you here right now? So I'm just saying that there are moments. I think for me at night when it happens, if I hear that noise,
there's a noise now.
There's definitely a noise, a frightening sound that happens.
Okay.
It depends on the pitch and the longevity of it that makes me wonder, maybe.
So you've You've been awakened from a deep sleep with this?
Deep sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. And maybe could be multiples.
Are the covers hovering too? Is that another sign?
There's a very good chance.
It goes hand in hand with it. Okay.
It goes hand in hand with it. And it does not matter.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, if maybe you just read the Bible before you went to bed at night.
There. Okay.
It could still, you can still have it happen.
Okay.
So that's something to be paying attention to on that one. Another one is when your negative thoughts about salad become your regular diet and you actually like it.
Really?
That's a big one.
And Daniel from the Daniel fast, he was definitely involved in spiritual warfare. So there's a connection there. Okay.
So that might be something. It might be a positive, right? Because if you start going towards salad, I'm just saying for all the meat eaters out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a dish that I like at, what's that one, the Blue Restaurant going out towards Alanson.
The Northwoods.
Northwoods, thank you. That's the double fried chicken with mashed potatoes.
Where they take fried chicken and then fry it?
Fry it, yeah.
Okay.
It's double fried. The best stuff ever. I always ask for more gravy, but they always put broccoli on there. And
yes.
I move it to the side.
Yes. I order there now, I just say, just hold the broccoli. I don't even need it.
I don't need it. Yeah, because there's like a pile of broccoli on your plate, and I'm like, listen,
but usually somebody at the table with me wants my broccoli, so now I have to get it. And then broccoli juice gets on my other food.
Right. You don't want to taste that.
Right. I don't want broccoli juice on my food.
I want a barrier of gravy to keep that from getting in there.
I wish that I could go to a restaurant and get the cafeteria tray with the little cubbies for each part.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it would.
I could see you come in sometime with your backpack.
Bring my own.
Yeah. Just put it on this tray for me. Don't mix anything up. Oh my gosh, that'd be so awesome. Okay. The last one, and I need to get ready for this one. When you start talking like Biden at parties.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you start making up your own words, start talking about
that sounds like my
things.
Sunday morning experience, man.
It could be spiritual warfare you're going on right now.
Yeah, that could be. I don't know if I've confessed this on the podcast, but I got a crown put on about 6 weeks ago, maybe a little longer.
Yeah.
And they gave me an extra shot of Novocaine to take care of, working on my tooth.
Yeah.
And they hit my tongue. So about a third of my tongue on the right-hand side has been numb for over 6 weeks. So I'm just going to blame any of my blunders on Sunday mornings on a numb tongue.
So you're still having that
It
problem?
is. It's right there.
Have you bit your tongue?
I haven't necessarily bit it, but I can't taste anything over there. And it feels like I've just put a 9-volt battery on that part of my tongue.
That's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like it to come back soon. But
well, I can tell you that you're not having any Biden moments on Sunday.
Okay.
So you're good.
All right.
But if it does happen, it could be possibly spiritual warfare if you start talking like Biden.
Yeah, it is crazy. Some of the things that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
Well, that's it. I was just going to say that's the last one.
Okay.
But those are all things
right
to keep in mind. If
it happens, it could be experiencing spiritual warfare.
I'm going to say that I'm on regular attack with that third one about the rotten egg smell. So I'm just saying.
Yep.
I'm under some, I guess maybe a lot of spiritual warfare right now in my house, and that seems to be the easiest weapon that he uses around me.
Right.
Is the rotten egg one.
Okay.
And that weird, creepy sound that happens before it goes on. All right, we're going to take an ID break. We'll be right back.
Don't settle for insurance that won't cover your toys, home, or auto. There's a reason that Wilson Insurance is an industry leader in Northern Michigan. They're not in the business to sell insurance. They're in the business to be there when you need an agent most. That's Wilson Insurance. Petoskey. Are you looking for more? Well, then you found it. Right here on More Podcast. Stay tuned.
Okay.
I just wanted to put that one in there one more time.
Get Rapture ready with your favorite host today, Pastor Gary and Pastor Alex Norton, as they come to you with information that you need to make it through the times coming ahead and more.
if you're dancing in your living room right now, listening to this or wherever you're at, that's okay.
Kind of a funky, jazzy thing going on there.
It's that's why it's there for you before you hear the news, so you're prepared. Well, in our Rapture Ready news today, we have a couple topics that have hit the news, and it's interesting. One of the things that I don't understand why this is even happening, but America, for some reason, the government that we have, made sure that Israel knows that we still want to be friends with them.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I'm
that's
like, why, aren't we friends with them already? But apparently, it's not the case.
Yeah.
We're working on that. So, in a warm speech to Parliament, U.S. House Speaker lauds historic connection of Jewish people to the land. Later says checks on government power, a crucial part of democracy that they're doing within their own government. And so, in an enthusiastic speech to the Knesset plenum, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives Kevin McCarthy pledged Monday that the U.S. would continue to fully fund Israel's security needs while denouncing Iranian aggression in the Middle East, as well as efforts to isolate Israel internationally. In the speech, with both praise for Israel and biblical quotations, McCarthy lauded Israel as the birthplace of the Jewish people, describing the country as a modern miracle, and insisted on its right to defend itself from attack.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I'm reading that and thinking, we do that. I mean, isn't that sort of our relationship right now?
It is, and I've recently did a little research on this. So every president since 1948 has come out on almost a yearly basis and said, "Hey, we're with you. We're with you." Okay, yeah. And sometimes their words are a little empty.
Yeah,
we've had a couple of recent presidents who said one thing, but then their activity seemed to go in a different direction. But for the most part, all of our politicians that are in power do continue to pledge support for Israel, at least in word.
Yeah, all right.
But that's a good thing. So Genesis chapter 12 gives us the promise that if we support Israel, we'll be blessed, and anyone who comes against Israel will be cursed. So it's a good thing.
Yeah,
that we as a nation continue to support, and that's a big reason I believe that the United States is so incredibly blessed.
And it's. I don't know. For me, when I was reading it, I'm thinking we got the worst friendship with them ever, because if you got to come out every year to say, "Hey, we're friends," right? You know?
Yeah. There have been some times where we have put the friendship on a pressure situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other reference that you talked about in Genesis and then Numbers, it's reiterated again in Numbers 24:9. It says, like you said, whoever blesses Israel will be blessed, and whoever curses Israel will be cursed. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the passages of scripture that McCarthy actually shared. And I think it's true how important those words are. I mean, the more that we try to find ways to help Israel, the better off we'll be. But, as we talk about the end times, I think at some point that's going to definitely go away. I mean, if we're that, wishy-washy about our relationship with Israel every time we have a new election.
Yeah, and living rapture ready, we know that right after the rapture of the church, that the Antichrist will be revealed, and he begins by putting the Jewish people in a position for safety. They sign a peace treaty, but he also helps them start to rebuild the temple and put the sacrifices in place. And so every time there's a peace treaty in the Middle East, Christians get nervous because they know the signs of the times. So as you see those things happen, I think it would be wise to be rapture ready. Live in such a way that it could happen today, and plan like it might not happen for 100 years, right?
You're always banking on like, oh, please, Mr. President, say something nice about Israel. Don't do anything. Yeah, I mean, because it affects all of us, really.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it affects our economy, it affects what we do in the world, and that's one relationship that we definitely need. But it's something to keep on your radar, because when you start hearing the United States talking negatively about Israel,
right,
be a little concerned.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of a challenge to that is we might not speak negatively about Israel, but then we start being pro, enemies of Israel. That's the part where you get nervous too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so another one that's kind of a touchy subject, but it's interesting that it came out this week. The Catholic Church is sending confusing messages to its parishioners. Rome, the president of the Pontifical Academy for Life, said that he is personally opposed to assisted suicide, but would not exclude it for others who wish to avail themselves of it. In April 21, there was a debate on the end-of-life issues at the Journalism Festival in, I think it's Perugia, Italy. Archbishop Vincenzo Pelagia said that he endorses accompaniment and cares as the best approach to assisting the terminally ill, but recognizes the legitimacy of the laws permitting assisted suicide as furthering the common good. Now, I looked this one up in the catechism book for the Catholic Church, and they're adamantly opposed to any of this. So it's interesting that the Catholic Church now has people, not necessarily saying that I'm the Pope, I'm saying this, but people that are in the high ranks of the Catholic Church that are saying, okay, Canada has this new assisted suicide law that's in their books right now. That's okay. We're going to accept that, or we're not going to say anything bad about it. It's crazy to me how we send such mixed messages about the value of life in the world today, and it definitely speaks to end times, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, as you know, in the United States, we have 11 different states that have made assisted or medical assisted suicide legal. So, when the value of life continues to go down with each of these decisions, it's crazy. We talked recently that now with the sex trade that's out there, the value of a human life is down into the single digits.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. And people are completely disposable. And so it's just amazing, as we talked about even on Sunday morning, how mankind wants to be its own God, choose to when, we didn't get to choose when we're born, therefore we shouldn't get to choose when we die. That's up to the Lord to do that. And the Catholic Church is being wishy-washy on that.
Yeah, because, you look in the Old Testament, I was trying to look up the reference, but, it's very clear that, and there's different interpretations, but the Church Father Irenaeus talked about this idea of, when we talk about thou shalt not murder, it's talking not just about the person that we're in conflict with, but also a murder of ourselves.
Yeah,
is in the same bracket as far as the churches believe for a couple thousand years.
And that's one of the things that I believe evolution helps to reinforce this idea that you can choose to die, right? Because there's a difference between humans and animals. Husbandry, which is the care of animals.
Yeah.
If you have a wounded cow that's, can't make it back, you take its life because you don't want it to suffer.
Right,
but humans and animals are not the same thing. So we don't get to make that same choice. That's where evolution would say, yeah, you're just an animal. Go ahead and take its life because, don't make it suffer.
Right.
We are not animals.
We're not animals. And, even though we're getting to the place where we're thinking like, well, we're just a group of cells, we can grow in the lab, we can do all this stuff. That whole thing does not redefine the way God sees life. And it's a very slippery slope we're moving on.
Absolutely. Super slippery.
Yeah.
And I think we've already crested the slope. And that, to me, gives me an excitement that the rapture is it's imminent, right? It could happen at any moment.
Anytime.
And we're seeing all of evidences in our world to back that up.
Well, one thing I would say, though, to anyone who may be contemplating or having this issue, in Psalms 34, verse 17 through 18, it says, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So, you may have these thoughts that are going through your mind that you have nothing to offer the world. You might as well, I'm up in age, or I've got illnesses that are taking me. God still is always wanting to have a part in the process as you move forward on the next phase of your journey. And he's going to be there with you, but he doesn't need you to take the reins and make it happen for yourself. I
know that you have experience in this as well as I do. Going to the hospital to visit someone who's near the end, right? You can see it coming. And there are those people that we go to visit who are continuing to minister to the very moment they take their last breath. They're ministering to the doctor. They're ministering to the nurses. They continue to minister all the way to the end. It's those people who stop ministering and just say, okay, now I'm done. I have no worth, no value, and no input into this world. Those people are shortchanging themselves.
Right. And the thing is you just read in Psalms 34, you have value until your last breath.
Right.
God still sees value in you. And you may be going through a very struggling time in your life, but at the same time, God's given you that breath for that day to do something for his glory. And you should look at it as an opportunity to do something, to be a part of the process. So I'm not sure what the Catholic Church is talking about. I'm not sure why they're backing this idea, even though in their own catechism it says that they don't believe in this. but it's starting to show a divide in the, I guess, the higher church, the split that's starting to happen.
The apostasy.
The apostasy, yeah, definitely good word. Yeah, apostasy that's happening within the ranks of people that should know better, right? That should have a different opinion on this. And for them to say that, there's some values that are being checked to the door and morality that's being tossed out for the sake of maybe being a part of the majority. And we need to watch out for that. So keep an eye on that. So that's what we have for the Rapture news, Rapture Ready news, and just always keep your eyes open. You never know what you're going to see in the news, but I'll tell you,
keep your eye on the eastern sky.
That's right, and it's happening all the time. But we're going to take an identity break. We'll be right back.
Hey, you want a s'more? S'more what? No, you want a s'more? I haven't had anything yet. So how can I have some more of nothing? You're killing me, Smalls. Please, sir. I want some more.
When hiring a contractor to tackle your next housing project, hire someone who knows what it takes to make it exactly how you dreamed it should be. With over 25 years of success, Sean Meyer Construction brings the know-how to tackle new or exciting projects. It takes time and know-how to build your dream home. Why not consider Waterfront Property Management and Builders to make your next property a reality? Your dreams, your way. That's a Waterfront Team promise. Located in downtown Lansing, Michigan.
Which is now in a war zone.
Yeah.
Trying to get through Lansing right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But
my gosh.
I just watched a waterfront construction commercial on TV last night.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Was it?
It was fantastic.
Made it look really good, didn't it?
Yeah. It was on Fox 32 and just great. The commercial was incredible.
Well, they do awesome stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, it's pretty cool to see all these guys that build and stuff, but it just seems like, I wish I had like not even a 0.0% talent like they have to do stuff because oh my gosh, it's amazing. They're like,
You did great. You've been working on your kitchen for a while, and that wainscoting was a big project, and you did great.
Yeah, well, it's straight.
Yeah.
It's straight and it's level. It may not be, like something that somebody down 20 years from now will be like, wow, that was some good work.
I think you should be proud of it.
Yeah, well, my wife's blinded by love. She tells me all the time that it looks good. I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyways, so we're now into our Harbor Light Bible trivia question. The question last week is up for debate, I guess.
It is. We had a little minor Pastor Gary moment there when I added two facts together.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we caused some confusion. Therefore, no one answered it
Right.
because the question was skewed. It was.
Yeah, it was.
So the question was, who raises the Antichrist after he takes a fatal wound?
Right.
Okay. And then we gave you a hint that it wasn't the Bible answer.
Right.
The fact is, as we dig into it, it is still Satan or the red dragon. The dragon helps bring the Antichrist back to life, but it is definitely surrounded with the false prophet. So
Yeah.
the false prophet is involved in this resurrection, and that was the answer I was going for, was the false prophet.
Right.
But there wasn't a super clear verse on it.
Yeah.
What I was doing was I was translating in my head the fact that the false prophet brings the statue back to, he brings the statue to life.
Right. Yeah.
And causes it to be able to, and everyone has to worship. And then the statue makes people worship itself. So I mixed two facts together.
Hey, that happens.
And it does happen.
Yeah.
And so therefore no one is a winner, and it's my fault.
Yeah.
But we are still in the process of giving away a podcast speaker for the month, right?
We have the drawing today.
We can do that. So I apologize to everyone for misleading with just heresy flowing through the microphone here.
Let me just say that if you've read Revelation, it is a tricky book to decipher, and sometimes facts and figures
right
might get.
And the truth is, sometimes when Pastor Alex and I are here in the studio, sometimes I am thinking up stuff on the spot.
Yeah,
and
right.
That was an on the spot question, not based in anything.
And
in the
let's just
Bible.
say that last week you were pretty tired.
Yeah.
Coming into
Right.
coming into the podcast, so that might have played into it a little
I
bit.
really apologize for that, folks. But it is the dragon who brings the beast, who is the Antichrist, back to life.
Yeah.
And then it is the false prophet who gives the power for the statue to come to life. So,
And that's all in the Bible. Revelation
all
13.
Revelation 13, right?
It's all right there.
Yep.
You can read it for yourself. 13:3, 13:14. I'll talk about that. So
yeah. So this week's trivia question is much safer and more biblically accurate.
yes.
Okay.
So what is the Bible question for us?
So
this week?
our Bible trivia question for this week is: what are the two offensive spiritual
Yeah.
weapons listed in the spiritual armor? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give it away that it's in Ephesians chapter 6. What are the two offensive pieces of equipment that are listed there?
Now you got me on this one.
I did.
because
I already
the first
tested it.
one, the first one I knew,
Right.
and then there was a second one, and I'm like trying to think through the armor in my head, and I'm like, I didn't get it. But this one is good. This
is a
like,
good one.
This is like a little tricky question and answer.
But biblically accurate.
It's biblically accurate. Has nothing to do with the dragon or
Right.
the Antichrist or anything. So this is totally and something you can't answer. I think you can answer it if you read
Yes.
the text, pay attention to it.
Oh my goodness. I
if
can't
you
believe
want-
I did that.
It's okay. The Biden moment.
Yep.
right there,
Biden
yeah.
moment right there.
If you are
Making
willing
up
to,
facts that aren't real.
right. You know what they said. You know what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you're looking to cash in on a possible swag gift and get your name in for the drawing for this coming month, well, you can send that to HarborLightBibleTrivia@gmail.com. That's HarborLightBibleTrivia@gmail.com, all lowercase. And let us know your answer. This one, I think you can figure out.
Yes.
It's not
This
going
should
to be.
This should be a little easier.
Yeah, this will be a little bit easier.
But just think about all those people that were in Revelation 13 and were scouring
Right.
that to find the answer. I was just driving you to the word.
It does not matter what translation you try to figure it out in.
Yeah.
It's going to be a doozy. Okay, so wow, we have come to our second speaker we're giving away today.
Yes, here we go.
And I have the special hat from Wilson Insurance that we pull all of our names out of.
Yep.
And I know Ben is praying right now that he would get-
As well as, I don't know if her name is in there, but my granddaughter Pippa is like, Papa, how is it that I haven't won? I mean,
Yeah.
it is a mystery how she hasn't won, but she does have some inside connections, so she'll probably be getting a speaker here
probably.
soon anyways. But let's see here. All right, I've got it.
Okay.
And we are going to be reading this now on the air. This is the winner of the speaker, the podcast Bluetooth speaker.
This awesome
with
speaker
our pictures on the
Yeah,
front.
that
And a
everybody
nice
is talking
bamboo
about. Oh.
front. It's just beautiful. It's Haley G.
Haley Geisler. All right.
Yeah.
She's won a podcast speaker. Sorry, Ben. Maybe.
Ben, just keep trying,
Just
buddy.
keep trying. Just keep doing it, buddy. This week's question, I think you can get it in there, and then we'll put you in the drawing again for your podcast speaker. But if you know the answer to our question, which is
The question is, what are the two offensive pieces of equipment listed in Ephesians chapter 6?
that's what it is. So send that to HarborLightBibleTrivia@gmail.com. And as always, I promise that we will not make fun of you on the air about any answers you give. We are not going to read any of the answers that come in. Maybe you have an idea, whatever. It's okay. We just want to hear your response and know you're listening.
After that last fiasco with the question, you should never make fun of anyone because the person asking the questions didn't even know what they were talking about.
We're not going to talk about that right now. That happens. You have immunity, as a pastor of church, every now and then that kind of stuff happens. So HarborLightBibleTrivia@gmail.com. Write that answer in there and let us know if you have the right answer.
Well, here's how to have more. Know God more deeply, find lasting freedom, discover your destiny, and make an eternal difference. You're listening to More Podcast. Looking for a go-to eatery that has awesome food? Well, Paper Station in downtown Harbor Springs is sure to have your next favorite. From their signature station burger to the golden crispiness of a hand-dipped onion ring, enjoy the flavors that make this a must-stop today. Paper Station. Well, has the winter done a number on your beautiful floors in your home? Well, Hamels Flooring, with their expert touch of Cliff Haas, is sure to have an answer for you. With a large exclusive collection of carpet and vinyl flooring, your floors will look better than new. That's Hamel Flooring here in Petoskey.
So we're going to get ready to get into the Bible talk for today. Last week, we started a new 7-week series on spiritual warfare entitled The Unseen World. And the whole idea is that we're not trying to scare anyone, but we need to be aware of our enemy. And if we're not, we can find ourselves in situations where we're frustrated and wondering why this would happen to me. And so this week, definitely, we had to create the groundwork to understand the origins of evil, to understand what Satan has to play in this. What are the demonic forces that are playing behind the scenes? The things that we can't see, but we would argue we can feel. You know, God gives us the ability to have that sense, to know what's going on. And spiritually, Scripture does say that we can begin to see those things happening before us if we allow God to give us the sight for that. But I wanted to open up the stage to Pastor Gary to start this conversation about this idea of spiritual warfare, because it is a huge subject. And you know what? I'll tell you, this is probably the hottest topic that has been in our church for a little bit. Other than the Revelation series, this one is like right up there.
Yeah, I've been getting lots of feedback from folks that they're really enjoying this. They're looking forward to it. I had, as a matter of fact, I had a couple of points that I made on Sunday morning, and I had some real Bible scholars, people that are probably more advanced in the Word than I am, come up and say, I've never heard that before. Can you point me in the right direction? So I know that people are excited about it. And I think that, as you said, Pastor Alex, laying out the groundwork, my intention was to get everyone to be aware of the fact that there's a spiritual world going on. It's unseen, and the evidence of how it breaks across from the spiritual into the natural world. We're seeing that, and so I went through a whole list of evidences for evil, and people were pretty excited because I think that they see where we are in the world today, and they're jumping in.
You mentioned in talking about the origins of evil, about how Jesus gave examples of that. The Old Testament gives examples of what we have for the origins of evil. And a lot of it talks about the rebellion happening and then Satan being removed from heaven. But there were some particulars in there that were interesting that you brought up. You mentioned that, Jesus mentions that Satan falls like lightning from the sky. Isaiah and Ezekiel talk about a little bit different perspective about the story. But Satan was so powerful that not only did he get ousted, but he brings with him how many angels?
A third of the angels. And one of the important things that I didn't talk about is it gives you a percentage, because there is an idea that God is still in the midst of creating angels, and a third of them could still be being deceived by the enemy.
Wow.
So that's an interesting thought. Again, just kind of extracurricular thinking, but it gives us a percentage. So a third of the angels were pulled out of heaven by the tail of the dragon, and he pulls them out of the presence of God. Yeah.
Right out of the presence. Yeah. And that to me just blows my mind when you think about the whole thing. I mean, we really don't know what it's like to be in the very pure presence of God. We have an inkling of it when we have worship and we listen to messages, read our Bibles, pray. But when you're in the very presence of God, and then to be talked out of it, to be persuaded and tempted to go a different way,
right?
That just blows my mind to think about that.
Yeah, and for humans to think that we're smarter than angels. The Bible gives us evidence that we're a little lower than angels,
right?
And so they're in the presence of God. They see the presence of God. They see all of that, and they were still sucked away. The deception level of the enemy is incredible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you mentioned on Sunday, we are not smarter than Satan. I mean, we would like to think we are. We can outsmart him or whatever, but we are not. I mean, he obviously has been in the game for a lot longer than we have.
Wasn't it interesting to read through that passage that he was the pinnacle of wisdom?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And the very top of beauty. So, just amazing the way in which he was created.
You also mentioned that Scripture does kind of give us an idea of what he looked like and why he may have been such a powerful entity.
Yes.
In the courts of heaven.
Right. So he is the worship leader of heaven. And it goes through, and as you look at it, and if you kind of dig in beyond just the surface level of what's written in our scripture, he has all of these beautiful stones that are a part of his actual being.
Yeah.
And so it's not just he has a robe with all of these stones in it, like, a little glamified wardrobe.
Yeah.
It's actually a part of his structure and his being were these stones.
That's what he looks like.
Yes.
And then it mentioned that, which I thought was interesting. You talked about his ability to sing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a fun one. Do you want to talk about that just for a moment?
Let's do it.
Okay. So in Ezekiel 28, we're going through that list, and we're seeing how he was created. And in the King James Version, as you look down in verse 13, I'm going to read you a part of that verse. Okay. So thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering: the sardius, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle. Carbuncle. That's a weird one.
What is that?
I don't know. And gold. Okay, and then here's the wonderful part of it.
Yeah.
And the workmanship of thy tambrets, and thy pipes was prepared in thee on the day in which thou wast created. So I'm reading from the King James.
Yeah.
And you just saw that word, the tambrets, is drums.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a timbrel. It's drums as well as, and you could bring cymbals into this concept. But then it says of thy pipes, plural. And so we have one windpipe, so we can sing one thing, where Lucifer, when he was created as the worship leader of heaven, he has multiple pipes, so he can sing all the parts of a song.
That's amazing, yeah.
Together. So he can sing the melody, he can sing the harmony, he can sing the backup stuff, he can do the rhythm. His body is a musical instrument.
He's just a walking drum machine and everything else.
Drum machine and vocal machine. And that was fun for me to be able to reference. And then I had people come up and say, I need that Bible verse. And so I was able to give that to them, and they're digging in on their own to kind of research that for themselves. But it's King James Version of that Ezekiel 28, verse 13.
Now, what's interesting, thank you for sharing that. What's interesting is that we live in a world today where we really tried to minimize what we think of the devil. A lot of times people have this maybe cutesy image of a little red character that we've seen in a cartoon with a bifurcated tail, and this idea that he's not that bad. It's like there's really a lot of talk about the yin and yang. There's an evil side, good side, and he's just the bad side. You just got to be careful of what he does and that kind of stuff. But we're talking about a sinister being,
yes,
that is intent to eradicate humanity, because we are basically an affront to everything that they hold dear, because God gave us His image. He gave us things that really speak to His glory and creation. And every time we exist, all the times that we exist, anytime that we become a part of the kingdom, it is like a slap in the face to Satan, because he no longer has that opportunity. He can't be a part of it anymore. And so the issue is that when we talk about the devil, it is not something that we're saying, this is just be careful, just watch out.
Yeah. The scripture says for us that that we have to be wise in how we deal with this, right?
Yeah.
We don't do it in a flippant way. So Satan is, he's not just intent on destroying humanity, but it's the reason behind it. It's because we are the recipient of God's love. We're the recipient of His image, as you said. Mm-hmm. So we are created a little bit lower than angels, but we are the recipient of God's image. The angels were created with free will, as we just discussed. A third of the angels were deceived. But Jesus didn't die for the angels.
Right, yeah.
Right? Think about that. Jesus became a human so that He could redeem us back to God. That makes Satan embittered against us, because we're the recipient of God's love. And so he is doing everything he can to destroy humanity, as you said,
Yeah.
because we are the recipient of God's love. And so that all of a sudden now we're in the crosshairs
Yep.
of the enemy,
Yep.
right? And then I think you see a little of this. I think you've probably experienced it at some point in life. You ever run into a person who has something that's broken and they're going to throw it away, and you're like, no, I'll take it, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, if I can't have it, no one can have it.
Yeah.
That's
you're right.
that's the enemy. That's his thinking, right?
Yep.
If I can't have these humans, no one's going to have them, and so I'm going to destroy them.
Yeah. And I think we see in our human history that he's found very multiple ways to make that happen. I mean, he gives us the desire for war, so we're going to just wipe ourselves out.
Yep.
Of course, we have the issues of abortion, suicide, all these things that are things to get us out of the picture, get rid of us. And he's always constantly developing more and more evil ways for us to destroy ourselves, so that
You go all the way back to Genesis chapter 6. He had basically tainted the entire gene, DNA of humans all the way down to one family. He almost succeeded in cutting off the ability for Jesus Christ to be our Redeemer.
Yeah.
That's why God had to destroy the earth with the flood.
Yeah. He had to step in and
He had to step in and save it because it was down to one family, had not been tainted by Satan.
That's just crazy to think about. Yeah. We could have.
And we're on that same trajectory, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about in Romans about all the people that are going to go through suffering, but also when we are raptured, the people that are going to try to come into the kingdom after the fact, they're going to have to give up their life for that situation. But the devil's going to be working overtime to not even let that happen, as he's been doing all along. It's a lot to really consider when you think about it. But I think the important aspect of what you've been talking about is that the devil is no one to play with. And we need to definitely take Ephesians 6 seriously about putting on our armor. And in the world that we're living in right now, just because some things are subtle, it seems like it could be a probability that we should maybe think about it. Doesn't always necessarily mean that's probably the biblical approach. And we need to go back to the scriptures, go back to like you mentioned, the scripture, is it in Jeremiah, the old ways? And
6:16.
Yeah, and remind ourselves of the truth that we should know. But there's a question, it's interesting that I was looking up this idea about how people can be deceived by Satan. I mean, that's sort of the question that we ask all the time. How is it possible as a believer going to church every day, being a part of the church? Oh, I'm glad if you do go every day, but every Sunday, there's this question of how is it possible that I could ever deal with spiritual warfare? How could it be deceived by the devil? And there's some just basic senses that we get from Scripture. We do know that obviously that there's demonic forces that are working behind the scenes all the time, trying to tempt us or influence us to move in a direction apart from what God wants us. We can also sometimes, just by our own sinful nature, begin to falter and try to deceive ourselves by going after things the devil may provide us with. And so that becomes something where we begin to take on the influences and those things that are in our life. So even if you are somebody that goes to church and maybe a believer, but allow things like bitterness and gossip to get in your life, you can start heading down a path that's going to be in the wrong place. I think the day and age we live in, we can deceive ourselves, especially with some of the conversations that are going on around us. And it can cause us to falter if we don't know the foundational arguments from Scripture. And, Paul tells Timothy, he says, know your doctrine, know your truth. Don't allow yourself to be persuaded by things that may sound lofty and great, but know what you're believing in. And the other thing is that, even aside from the enemy's attack sometimes, we can allow our emotions to do all the work for the devil, right? We talked about in the last series about allowing things from our past to define our future, to allow things to hold us back, to try to run up ahead past God's, perfect will for us so that we can get there. But it leads us to a lot of things. I mean, what are some other things that you see that you've noticed where Satan seems to have control or seems to have influence on us as believers, even though we are coming to church every day?
All right, so let's go ahead and kind of crack that can open. This is one that can quickly slip into kind of rule keeping or a little legalism. But as a pastor, I want to encourage you to be careful. It says that we're not to give a foothold to the devil. So that's kind of what you're saying. Like, where are the footholds? That's where you stick your foot or toe in the door, and then a person can't shut the door. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go there. The movies that you watch.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're just peppered with all kinds of demonic activity. The music you listen to, the ideas of things that you're reading, all of that stuff are little footholds for the enemy to get just a little wedge or a little place in your thought life, in your your marriage or whatever it might be. You need to be really, really careful. I do pray for people for deliverance, and we do see demonic oppression come against Christians. And then, so we pray deliverance, we pray for people to be set free from those kind of things. And then I ask questions like, okay, so where's the open door? Where have you given a crack for the enemy to get in? Well, I've been watching this TV series and, okay, let's not watch that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's don't put anything before our eyes that gives an access for the enemy to drop thoughts and temptations and struggles into our life. So, it's not about keeping rules. I'm just telling you, let's keep the door shut.
Yeah. Yeah, and all those things you mentioned, it's interesting that we don't even realize, like if we took some of those things that are prevalent in our society today, things we listen to, things we watch, things that we've accepted as being social norms, and we bring them back to the Scripture, we find out that a lot of those things, God said, do not do, and he gives reasons for why, because it can cause this problem or that problem. But that was how, even the devil worked within the children of Israel, right? He would give them plausible ideas like, okay, so you don't want to be at war anymore. Why don't you try to have peace with your other nations around you that are idol worshipers? But, you don't have to necessarily be that nation, but just kind of, put a little toe in the water just so you can have maybe a conversation or whatever. And we find out that led to worse things ever. And for them, it led to their destruction many times.
Yeah.
And we wonder why sometimes in our own household, why are my teens, so snappy with me? They're not, being respectful. Well, I've watched some of the stuff that's supposedly good for kids, and those kids do not respect their parents. They try to find ways to get around their parents' rules and regulations. We talk about husbands and wives finding harmony with each other. Even the very definition of how God orchestrated the marriage life. Mm-hmm. I'm not against women's rights. And definitely when we talk about the church, I think women should be doing all the stuff that we do. Mm-hmm. But in the home, there's a particular reason why God set up the structure for protection. And we have thousands and thousands of married couples that are trying to usurp that idea simply because they don't want to follow the rules.
Right. And, almost every single TV show is going to make the dad look dumb.
Yeah.
And parents to be out of touch. And they do it in a way that seems humorous.
Right.
But that's all dropping ideas into your children's head or into our society's head that, dads are dumb and parents are out of touch.
Right.
Completely false. And also giving the foothold for the enemy to come in and drop lies in.
And we wonder why that becomes such a prevalent part in the ministry when we talk to families and counsel them. And one of the things I've noticed is that, we've talked about this before, the percentage of people that are going through issues within their marriage of divorce, even in the church, is unreal. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing that I've found, I know you've probably found too in counseling these families, is that there's a major misunderstanding of how any structure is supposed to work, right? The husband doesn't want to take a lead. The wife doesn't want to support. The husband doesn't want to support the wife. They don't want to, and it becomes basically we're roommates trying to figure out how to raise a child. And we wonder why marriages in the church are falling apart too. Mm-hmm. And that's the one area I think more so than any other that the devil's had such a foothold to try to bring destruction to the church.
Right.
Because if we begin to question those things, then how do we question God's authority in our lives, right? If God's speaking to us and talking to us, well, do I have to really follow it? I mean, maybe God's just giving me a suggestion. Maybe I don't have to follow that, that inkling in my heart, that unction to move forward in that direction. And it becomes this snowball effect that it starts affecting everything. And it's scary to me sometimes when I see that happening within the church, because we should be the light on the hill. We should be, the example. Mm-hmm. But that's one area. But spiritual warfare is, as we talk about the subject on Sunday, you mentioned that how Jesus was very adamant about making sure we understood the unseen.
Yeah.
And how those things should be on the forefront of everything, because it does affect everything. It doesn't just affect maybe our personal journey and how we battle against our temptations or whatever, but it affects every subtle thing. Our relationship with our wife, our children, our friends, our work buddies, whatever it is, it affects us so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun to see Jesus' thoughts on some of these things going to Matthew chapter 12. And I love that section where he says, hey, let's tie up the strong man if you want to get the stuff back that the enemy stole from you.
Yeah,
right.
I like
and that was great. I think I love it when Jesus kind of gives us an example that doesn't seem very Christian-like, right? We're not going to go in and tie up somebody.
Yeah.
But that's the example that he used. And the enemy has stolen a lot of things from people.
Yeah.
And if you want to get that stuff back, which are peace and, prosperity and the wonderful things in your family back and your marriage back, you got to tie up the strong man. Yeah. And you do that by spiritual warfare.
Yeah, and that's like you said, that's a big thing. And I love the analogy that you gave on Sunday too. It's like, who would be standing out in the yard watching somebody in their house just ripping them off?
Right.
You're going to want to go in there and deal with it. It doesn't make any sense that in our spiritual journey we would do the same for our spiritual house. We would stand outside and say, hey, you know what? Take whatever you want. And so maybe at some point, as believers in Christ, we're going to have to make a firm stand about something that's going on in our family and in our lives. This is something that maybe we need to draw a line in the sand for us because the Bible gives us encouragement to do that.
Yeah. Can I bring up a question that I received at my small group, which I think a lot of people have had this question. I know I did when I first got into the Word. So when did Lucifer get kicked out of heaven on the timeline? So we know that Adam and Eve fall in the garden. Yeah. And Lucifer is there, Satan is there, in taking on the serpent. So when was it that the enemy was kicked out of heaven? Yeah. Okay, because God created everything in the 7 days. So the answer to that is the fact that we don't know how much time there is between Genesis chapter 2 and Genesis chapter 3. Yeah. Now, I'm a 24-hour 7-day creationist, but we don't have a timeline between those two. So between those two times, between Genesis 2, when the creation is completed, and Genesis 3, when mankind falls in the garden, that's when Satan is kicked out of, Lucifer is kicked out of heaven. Yeah. So it's in that time mode. Okay. So that was a great question somebody brought up to me, and I hope that brings some answer to you. But
whoever that was.
Yeah, whoever that was. Related to Ben Budnick. So, so it was a great question, and it's a wonderful one that I've received in the past, but there's your timeline. Yeah. Between Genesis 2, which is all of creation being done, and Genesis 3, when mankind falls, because Adam and Eve were created to live forever, they weren't in a rush to hurry up and do anything. So there could have been a long time between those, or it could have been, 1 day between them. That's fine. Yeah. That's when Lucifer... he wants the adoration of the angels, and he wants the adoration of mankind, and so that's when he falls.
And so that whoever that question was, there's a Pastor Gary answer for you, ready to go, right hot off the press.
There you go.
Take that to the bank. There you go. A little more to study about. So we, it is interesting that as we're going to get into this topic of spiritual warfare, that there are going to be a lot of things to consider, and it may seem kind of daunting when we consider maybe how much control, how much influence the devil has on us. But the one thing that you mentioned, which was sort of like the end to your message, you said in Revelations 12:12 that we basically have this idea, this phrase that is, war is won, but the battle still rages.
Yeah, that's one that helps people when they're like, hey, I thought Jesus won the war. Why am I still having these troubles? And going back to, the real battles that we have going on in our lives, to see where the Japanese surrender on...
Yeah, that was a great story too.
Yeah, September the 2nd, 1945, they surrender. But then it takes weeks for the rest of the troops of the Japanese to be informed that they had lost and to stop fighting. Because the fact is, some of those islands had to be taken before they would give up, because the Japanese were told, you will fight to the death. Yeah. So they're not just going to walk around. If you say, hey, the war is over, they're not going to believe you.
Right. Yeah.
That's the exact same pattern that we see in our spiritual battle that we have against the enemy. He's lost. He knows he's doomed. There is an end date coming.
Yeah.
Okay. He knows his fate, but he's just going to take as many down with him as he possibly can. So we're still battling those demons all the way up to the very end.
Yeah. When you were sharing that story, my wife keeps nudging me and she's like, how is that possible that one guy would be a holdout? Doesn't somebody like tell him? And I'm like, he's probably on a small island. It's probably a really tiny island.
Yes.
And he's like defending it.
Yep.
And they're not going to share any. If the war's over, nobody's going to walk over and say, hey, man.
A lot of people don't realize because of our geography, there are actually thousands of islands in the Philippines. And so he's just watching over one of those islands.
This poor guy.
29 years, 107 days, he held out. And there was reports that people went further than that, but they just never were able to, to actually find the person holding out all the way up into the 2000s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to like 2005, but they weren't able to actually apprehend the person and say the war's over. But yeah, definitely in 1974.
This poor guy, 29 years away from his family.
Yeah.
I mean, his kid is an old adult.
And he surrenders.
Yeah.
And they take him back home. His wife is remarried to somebody else.
Oh,
his whole life is gone.
That's even worse.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's the part of the story that would have been good to tell. Like, the poor guy goes home, doesn't have a wife anymore.
Yeah.
His dog that he loved is dead, been dead for years.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, come on, it sounds like a country song.
Yep. So that's the idea, that we're still fighting. The war has already been secured for us, but we're still battling demonic forces that refuse to give up, and Satan's not going to go down without a fight.
No. Yeah. And I've mentioned this to a lot of people in our church, but a good Christian movie to check out is the movie Nefarious.
I've heard of this, and
it's so good.
You can speak on it because I haven't seen it.
Well, it's basically like a screw tape letter, modern day screw tape letter, but it is so good because the things they bring out are so relevant to today that when if you're talking about spiritual warfare like we are right now, this is something to just at least, I don't know, kind of peer behind the veil a little bit, kind of get the writers did such a good job pulling scripture together to make this story relevant for the time. It is. I guess they're billing it with a lot of horror movies, I think, to get people in the door.
Okay.
But it's basically a dialogue between a lawyer and a person in prison. And I'll tell you, this is one of those movies where you're like, I sat there at the beginning and I'm like, where's the CGI? Where's all the special effects?
Okay.
Not a lot of special effects. It is mainly about the dialogue and learning how the devil works behind the scenes to bring people down and do what they do. And I was walking out of there. I'm like, this is good. This is good stuff. I mean,
so I just want to preface it. It is rated R. Is that correct? Somebody told me it was rated R.
I'm not sure about
it. I just want our listeners to be aware.
Maybe it's a no rating. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Maybe
I don't
that's
remember.
What it is. Okay.
The movie, I don't even remember if there's a lot of swearing in it. It was really just a really deep theological dialogue about spiritual warfare. But I don't remember about the rest of it. Yeah. I'm personally, I don't have a problem with some of that stuff, but some people might be sensitive to that. My wife, she didn't even say anything about any of the swearing, so maybe there's not a lot, because normally if she hears one word that comes out that she definitely does not like, she's like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that happening at all. So it might not have happened, but it was definitely really.
She enjoyed it, but she had a different take on it than you did.
Yeah.
Right.
She was, I mean, the part that really got her was talking about the explanation of abortion and sex trafficking that was brought up in the movie. And she really touched her as far as the explanation of how the devil works behind the scenes. And the way they present it is things that people don't really think about. And so, if you can handle that kind of stuff, I personally, I love movies that
make you think.
Yeah, they make me think and dig real deep theologically. That's my wheelhouse.
Yep.
I love that stuff, but some people may not. I don't know.
Right.
But we had a good crowd there when we went.
Well, we're going to have a great time in the series as we continue on. So this weekend, if you'd like a little hint on what's coming, we are going to start looking at the tactics. Now we know Lucifer, Satan, is behind evil and all of that. We're going to look at his tactics and what he does to try to trip us up and hinder us and steal from us and all that. So we're going to take a look at who the real enemy is and how to deal with that.
Just to keep it in the Army-esque thing, that's good intel, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Some intel on how to deal with the weapons of our warfare.
And that actually be a part of my opening story and is going right along with what you're saying. It's wonderful. I've already been typing it up and trying to memorize it and get it ready to go.
I think it's, that one you did last week about the Civil War. I was thinking to myself, you should have had a background track.
Oh,
of like a banjo and a little bit of
taps and
stuff.
Yeah.
While you're doing it. So maybe this week, depending, I don't know what your story is, you should do a little background.
It's Civil War.
Yeah. You should get some background.
I should probably do that. That's a good idea.
And just kind of build the drama of the story. Because it was so funny because you said, you were talking to me about the story if it went off well last Sunday. And I'm like, you had pauses in the right spot. Like it was intense pauses. And so people are like even drawing even more. And you're like, well, that's because I forgot what I was going to say.
You made me laugh so hard when I checked with you. I'm like, hey, was that okay to, and you're like, the pauses?
Yeah.
I know you were looking for the next word, but they were perfect.
Yeah. It was like right on the money. And everybody's like drawn into it. You're like, oh, the pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect. You couldn't have done any better with that. It was
thanks.
Good. Yeah, that story was, I went and read that whole, I read an article about this story.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe that people were sitting there with picnic baskets and their kids were running around like it was a after church.
Like going to the fair.
Yeah.
Right?
And just to watch when people are dying in front of them.
Yep.
And it didn't register with them for quite a while before they realized, this is bad. Let's get out of here. Yeah. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Probably when one bullet goes whistling past one of your kids.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we're done.
Are these real bullets? I didn't know these were real bullets. Yeah.
like it was a reenactment.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about all the people that go to reenactments right now. And it's like, that's basically what happened the first time.
Yeah.
You're standing there with a Coke in your hand watching the battle and somebody's shooting and they're shooting real bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Sometimes.
Well, we'll be 13 months past the story in which I told you. We'll be in the next big battle, and so it's 13 months later, and so get ready. It's going to be a good one.
It's good. I can't wait. Yeah, I love it. And then if we're starting the spiritual warfare series. Not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it's not necessarily going to be following specifically Pastor Gary's notes, but we're going to dig into it a little bit differently and a little bit deeper because we have the time on Wednesdays. And so I encourage you to come out for that.
I love it. I think it's great when you and I get a chance to work this way. So, the weekend, I'm just kind of, just piquing people's interest, and then you're able to take them for an hour and a half every Wednesday night into the depths of the subject matter. That's great.
Oh, you know what? And I've got my first class almost done, and it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Well, that's it for us on this podcast. Again, thank you so much for spending time with us, and remember that Haley Geisler won the podcast.
Way to go, Haley.
She's at college, and I think she's coming back at some point.
Okay,
but she can take that with her to their dorm. And, of course, they're all fixed so they can only play our podcast. So it'd be good,
Yeah. Even if we need to send it to her, let's go ahead and just get that out to her.
We could mail it to her,
Yeah, that would be great.
I'll get that from
college students love getting packages. They love gifts. We can throw a couple Lisa K cookies in with it.
Oh.
There you go.
Well, I think would be better is if you give me the cookies so that I can put them in the box for her. And I'll make sure this
shows up. There's just wrappers in there with no cookies.
Must have been a mouse in the box. I'm not sure what's going on. All those molasses cookies. My mouth waters every time I think about them. All right. Well, that's it for us. We hope that you got all that you are looking for today, the more that you needed, and we'll see you next week.
We want you to know, find, discover, change with us. More podcast ending transmission. Now.